Hi everyone. Before every Jewish event, rabbis are often busy with a myriad of questions concerning how to observe that event. Before Pesach, we're already inundated with questions about preparation and which foods need to have special kosher for Pesach labeling. Before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we get asked about which prayers should be recited and in what way. On Sukkot, we have questions and sometimes even visual visits to check out a sukkah and its proper placement to be away from trees, or the status of somebody's lulav or esrog that might have been split and may be ruined. Many rabbis like to share their best questions with colleagues so that we all know what's going on in the minds of our congregants. And this season is no different. And with COVID-19, the questions have a much more interesting and exciting tinge. Take yesterday, for instance. Two different colleagues shared two different questions that I want to share with you today. One noted that a congregant asked if because of COVID-19, can we just dispense with the leather shoe thing this year? And when questioned by her rabbi as to why, the congregant responded, well, with the COVID thing, I figured that this was enough for this year, and we would just forget about wearing those Chuck Taylors. The second questioner asked a deeper 9-day based question. Rabbi, he said, I've heard that some rabbis are allowing people to listen to non-live Jewish music during the 9 days. And based on that idea, can I, even just for this 1 year, eat non-live kosher meat? And as funny as these questions seem, what is it about Tisha B'Av in general, and this year in particular, that made people reach out for some sort of rabbinic dispensation? Why are the 9 days and Tisha B'Av the things that people try hard to let go of? And while I'm at it, allow me to ask another question. As the reading of Parshas Devarim, our weekly Parsha, almost always precedes the Tisha B'Av immediately, I often wonder about why we use this Parsha to bring in the day and the season of Tisha B'Av. What's the connection of this final month-long speech of Moshe Rabbeinu on the one hand, and the mourning period that we're in on the other? And I believe that the answer comes down to an awareness that modern Jews suffer from. Says Rav Soloveitchik, as he diagnosed it, the Jews today suffer from a willed disregard for history, and particularly the tragic history of the past. Spending time focusing on tragedy frankly makes us uncomfortable, which is the antithesis of what current Jewish outreach leadership feels is needed if we are to make Judaism relevant to today's times. But here's where we err. Because when we make the religion only about the comforts and the conveniences, only about the Kiddushim and the Shalom Zachars, then we are de-emphasizing the depth and the spiritual values of what we believe in. What we believe in is a function of, on the one hand, who we are, and also where we come from. Ironically, it was the Roman statesman Cicero who noted that to remain ignorant of things that happened before you were born is to remain a child. To have a more robust depth of who we are and what we stand for, we need to study history, and particularly a personal history. Indeed, Cicero added that history is a witness that testifies to the passing of time. It illuminates reality, it vitalizes memory, it provides guidance in daily life, and it brings us tidings of antiquity. This isn't only true about personal history of individuals, it's the story of nations as well, who through a proper awareness of our collective national history, including knowing who we are, where we come from, and just how we came from there to here, recognizing both the good steps and the bad ones, it helps us plan for even bigger and better strides in the pursuit of our collective destiny. And I believe this is why Moshe's speech at the beginning of Devarim, where he reminds the people of all the places where they messed up in the last 40 years, is the perfect introduction to the ongoing Tisha B'Av message. Moshe told the people that examining the errors of the past helps you correct them in the future. When people, even strangers, undergo trying moments together, they form intense and unique bonds. Something life-changing happens in the process. Both parties may be transformed forever as a result. Both share each other as a reminder and a witness, and a source of growth. Moshe wanted the people, who were going to be entering the land very soon, and eventually left to their own devices, their own farms, and their own Shevet-specific sections of land, never to forget the ties that bind them spiritually into a nation. The good times, and yes, especially the bad ones. For it was these times that helped them connect and unite even stronger. Yes, my dear friends, there is value in the pursuit of a history. On the other hand, the Baal Shem Tov warned that forgetfulness leads to exile. Remembrance is the secret of redemption. Because as Professor Erica Brown noted, memory is our collective glue. It's the master story that advances a vision of redemption for the future. But if we forget, says Professor Brown, we're no longer anchored by our deepest values and core beliefs. It is memory that enables us to restate our values in the presence of each other. We are at that nexus in history when we can complete the message. And so each year, as we encounter the 3 weeks, as we encounter Tisha B'Av and the sad texts of Yirmiyahu, of Eov, of Rebbe Lezer HaKalir, among others, we compare them to the news of today and marvel at the way that these ancient voices pierce our modern reality and offer a way of understanding a world that can seem confusing and disorienting. But at the same time, we're afraid of letting the experience get just too personal. Why? And more importantly, what can we do about it? Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, writes that while children lack the capacity to suffer a loss they never experienced, and thus are exempt from Avelus in that situation, we need to understand that every single year that the Beis Hamikdash is not rebuilt, it is equivalent of a year when it was destroyed. And if that's this year's reality, then children are obligated to experience this loss again and again in order to mature into it and live to change it. And if this is true for our children, then it's certainly true for you and me. If Tisha B'Av is about paying respects to the Beis Hamikdash, then it's essential to understand that it was a central feature of our past, and without it, many mitzvos can't be observed today. But it's really more than just understanding about destroying buildings. It's more about than just the building that we commemorate. Tisha B'Av mourns the loss of an aspect of our relationship with Hashem. The loss of Hashem who dwells within us, Hashochein Itam B'Soch Tumosam. It mourns the loss of a religious center and a capital city, and the destruction of all those who lived during that period, and so many ones that came about in the future. Now guys, if there ever was a year that gave us a connection to Tisha B'Av in my lifetime, I believe it's the current one. Yes, in this last year we have seen rises in anti-Semitism close to home, as close as Brooklyn and Muncie, where open, overt anti-Semitism was the order of the day in December and has continued thereafter. And the government and rule of local law was handicapped to do anything about it due to backdoor politicking, and as a result was unable to administer appropriate justice. And who would have imagined that the words that we won't be able to do our obligations in the place where you chose, the essential element of the Musaf, of Pesach and Shavuos, would have application not only to the Bayis Hagadol VaHakadosh Shenikra Shemcha Alav, the place where the great house of Hashem, the Beis Hamikdash, but also our own Batei Knesset, the Mikdashei Me'at, the small temples, Mipnei Hayad HaShlucha, Yado Parashsar, Al Kol Machamadeha, the hand of God that carried the COVID in America, in Israel, and in worldwide. Tisha B'Av and the entire mourning period is thus an important educational opportunity for all of us. And we ought not waste it seeking unique heterim this year. Let's take advantage of the opportunity and relate to the loss of connection to Hashem and experience it in some level up close and personal. Let's talk to our families about the lessons of history, with the attempts at drawing conclusions and connections to our modern day challenges of connecting to Hashem, and how we might overcome them in our despair. Let's recall the message of my dear friend, the late great Professor Elie Wiesel, who noted, "Because I remember, I despair, and because I remember, I have the duty to reject despair." Talk to your family. Talk with your family and your friends about the challenges that we've endured as a nation throughout history. And also remember, we're still here to talk about it, and we always will overcome. Never forget that Tisha B'Av reminds us Hamakom Yenachem, and as we remember Hamakom, the Ribono Shel Olam, may it be so in our days that Mimekomo Uyifen Berachamim. Shabbat Shalom V'Nechamas Tzion to all.